Hello and welcome to another 50 and fabulous video. Today I wanted to share a little bit more about my family, my children in particular, because of course most of you would have seen my video earlier this week celebrating Amber's 18th birthday, and of course you could have seen the happiness on my face because, as I shared then, I really feel so accomplished with my kids. However, I wanted to also be able to share the reality of some of the situations we face. So I asked my eldest son's permission first before I share this information with you guys. And that is Darian, my firstborn, has some challenges because he has a condition known as Aspergers Syndrome. Now, Asperger's Syndrome is a developmental disorder, and it runs along a spectrum. So it can either be very mild or it can be severe. And it's a spectrum disorder very similar to the way autism is. As a matter of fact, in his very early years when he was young, we wondered if he was in fact autistic. Not because there were too many signs of autism, because he was generally meeting most of his milestones from a baby growing up. But there were a few issues. He did start speaking late. He did potty train a bit late. But he was such an intelligent child. He was reading signs aloud even before he was speaking full sentences, you know. So it was something we took note of. And also he loved reading. His entire preschool experience, his teacher talked about the fact that, you know, he will sit on her lap and the entire day he wanted to read. He, you know, did not engage in the social activities with the other children and all that. This is what helped us to eventually be able to identify that there were challenges that he faced. But as I say, we weren't sure what it was because for the most part, he was meeting all his milestones and so. So how do we know what is Asperger's syndrome? What it is a difficulty in being able to differentiate social signs. So reading body language is difficult. So basically, he takes whatever you tell him at face value. So he has had to learn that people will say one thing but mean another. So he actually had a really tough time in school, not so much in primary school, because during his later years in primary school, he had Quantrell and then Amber to keep him company. And Quantrell in particular, Quantrell's friends became his friends as well. So there was an extension of a few of his close friends, Quantrell friends, and primary school was fine. When he got into secondary school, however, that is when everything became magnified. Because in secondary school, one expects that you would be able to understand certain things and make the linkages with it. So how did we first discover that Darian had Asperger's syndrome? I think it was in standard 3. He had been doing exceptionally well in all of his end-of-term exams prior to that throughout school life. But it was in standard 3 that he did really poorly in his exams. So I went to find out from the teacher what exactly the problem was. And the teacher showed me his exam paper, particularly for English and comprehension. And what he showed was that, Darian, can you take the wrapper away? Thank you, son. So we have a puppy in the house, right? And he's disruptive. Okay, so I was sharing Darian's exam for English was one of the first signs that what his condition was. So it was simple as this. The teacher had given for exams a paragraph which described a group of children in a classroom. And while they were sitting doing their exam in a classroom, a snake appeared on the door, on the window. And on the window pane, only one girl saw the snake. And when she saw the snake, she froze. Okay, so what did it mean she froze? So immediately we will know. So she froze in terror, that she was scared. She was terrified of the snake. So she was unable to think. She could not complete her quiz, you know, whatever was going on. But Darian did not make the link, because you were supposed to infer from the story that when the child saw the snake and she froze, the freezing was related to a range of emotions. Okay? And because he could not make that connection, it meant that he put incorrect answers in his paper, and as a result, he failed the exam. So that being one of the first clue, and of course I had a really, really good friend named Wendy, who was an occupational therapist, and so she had been exposed to a lot of psychology stuff, and she was the first one who, you know, in talking to me over a period of time, identified that it could be Asperger's. So how do we feel about it? It has been tough. It has been particularly difficult for Darian, as I say, especially during his secondary school life. He was a target of extreme bullying. He suffered immensely. His face broke out in such terrible acne and all that related to the stress he was going through. So it was a really, really tough time for him. But it helped that we knew and we understood, and we shared with him, because I had taken him for professional diagnosis so that we can confirm whether or not the problem existed. Now, the good news is Darian falls on the spectrum of the milder side. So it's not extreme and very manageable. I am thankful that my child does not have to be on medication constantly. I am thankful that the disorder is not something that shows up as a physical disability, but the reality is, in as much as that exists, it's a struggle for him, because he knows it impacts his ability to think things through in a manner that allows him to be analytical and be quick to make decisions and be quick to do things. So it's a challenge in some respects, but I am able to look at the brighter side and say, you know what, I am so thankful to have my son. I am grateful that it does not require, as I say, constant medication or any such thing. There's no cure, but hopefully over time he would really develop more and more coping skills that allows him to know that he could function independently as a grown adult and making decisions and, you know, being able to live a successful life. That's what I still pray for, and I am really hopeful. I know God has been very, very good to us. We've been covered by grace in this house, and I pray that that's what will stay over Darian for years to come.